Well, hey there, fellas. Mr. Halter here with Lenny again, looking over my shoulder, giving us a little wisdom because that's what we're talking about right now. Last 2 weeks ago, we were talking about hearing from God in His Word. A week ago, we talked about hearing God through His whisper, His still small voice. And this week, I want to focus on hearing God through each other, through the community, and through the church. Many of you know what we are doing here in Alton. What you may not have known is for about 3 years, we've been writing a book called Brave Cities, which we will release in February. And the subtitle is How God Builds Kingdom Ecosystems, the architecture, artistry, and archaeology of building kingdom ecosystems. We're really talking to people that are starting churches from scratch, mostly in impoverished areas, and so we're going to kind of share our story of what's happened in Alton, but also quite a few other networks around the country and the world that have been taking an approach like we are, where you really find a small group of friends. You don't really go for thousands of people. You just try to find a small group of friends that live very intentionally in very close proximity. Everybody in our network lives literally within a mile, except for the Halters. When we moved out on this farm, we're about 10 minutes away. But you find some friends that live very close together that share daily rhythms and weekly rhythms, and who build benevolent business and do justice works, and then try to use our homes as very intentional mission posts in neighborhoods, mostly struggling neighborhoods. So that's kind of the architecture of a brave city. But behind the scenes, probably the coolest part for me has been, I don't know, just being like the old guy. My name is Big Poppy for most of them. Most of them are mid to late 20-somethings, millennials, as they call them. And, my two son-in-laws, they call me Dad. And I get called other names, but within the community, I've kind of, I'm just the old guy. And one of the great privileges I've had watching this network grow is that, quite simply, they just come to me to ask for wisdom. And a lot of the times in my life, I would say that I've been saved. I've been steered away from harm. I've been guided into better truth or a better decision, primarily through other people. Like, it's just been the greatest gift of being a part of a church, God's church, where wise, godly people say, "Hey, Hugh, have you considered this?" And I will tell you, I tell everybody this, like, I've probably made thousands of decisions in my life. The ones that I ran by people were all the best decisions I made. All the worst decisions that I made, and they are deep and long. I kind of came up with it on my own. I just kind of thought, oh, I think I've figured this out. Me and the Lord, I got His guidance. And then I go afterwards, I'm like, oh, I don't think He was in that at all. And I get my lunch eaten. So yeah, you can hear from God in His Word, and you can hear from God in the still small voice. But the most practical way, I think, to hear from God is with godly friends. Honestly, the community of people around you. And so I just wanted to share. Last week, I kind of taught a little bit long, so I'm going to go a little bit shorter and just give you some practicals about how to listen together. When you think about being in a church or being in a men's fraternity group or whatever it is, think about the idea of the church being what was called a community of desire. It's a monastic idea that you find people and you share the same desire. And it might be a mission desire. We have a desire to help those that can't help themselves. It might be a desire to press in and to worship God. All these are great desires, but church really isn't just a place you should go on Sunday, like to get a little moral training. The church, at its very essence, is a community of deep desire where we desire to hear from God and obey. That's it. Whatever He says, we do. It's not a place where you find people that like your political standpoint. You can hang around and get some good business for your real estate or whatever. Church is literally a people that come together to go, we're desperate to hear from God together and to make sure we make as many right decisions as we can and try to avoid as many wrong decisions that cost us time and money and flesh and pain, and because we're following a king that's trying to build a kingdom. And so here's some pointers for how to listen to each other. Okay, I'm just going to give you 4 of them. Number 1, what I've learned is it doesn't matter how long somebody's been walking with the Lord or been a Christian. The people that you should ask for wisdom from in a church environment or in a network of Christian friends are really, or should be, those that don't have a dog in the hunt, as we say. If somebody has a dog in the hunt, they will generally give you wisdom based on what they would like to see happen and how it affects them. Case in point, I had a lot of godly friends in Denver, Colorado. And when my wife said, "Hey, babe, why don't we sell the farm and move to this little town called Alton?" I ran up the flagpole of many, many people, my closest friends, the elders in our church, some of my closest spiritual buddies, my 3 golfing buddies that were world-class Jesus people. And all of them said that they thought I was crazy. And so what I learned was that they were all wrong. They really were, that we were hearing from God, and they all gave me the same advice, all the advice that they would essentially not benefit from, okay? So they were all saying, we don't want to lose you. We don't want you guys to leave, and so it's probably, we don't think it's a good idea. None of them actually made the mistake of saying it's not God's will, but they all said things like, we think that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. Or they said, that would be a stupid decision based on all of your time and effort into the city. So some of them were trying to be strategic, saying, that we had really made a big wave into Denver and it would be unstrategic to blow that at this point. Some actually tried to act like they were my counselor. Hey, Hugh, we know you're tired. You've planted 2 churches. Your son's been having seizures every hour. You really need a breather. And I was like, I'm right there with you guys. I agree with you. It's just my wife thinks we should go and that God's directing us. And so we went against all of the advice of some good Christian friends because we knew that they all had a dog in the hunt. They all cared about something. So when you're looking for true wisdom, it really is wise to go for guys that they don't stand to gain or lose anything from your decision. So they're guys that can pray objectively and really hear objectively, try to give you some thoughts without a dog in the hunt. So that's number 1. Secondly, prioritize hearing from people that actively seek the voice of God. And there's a difference. There are Christians and then there are those that seek to hear God's. A lot of Christians just want to hear from Tyler on the weekend. They literally are looking for some word from somebody else. But then you'll find people, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that, but you'll find other people that Tyler's word is just one of the words that are in their lives, and it's important, but they go, I'm going to God. Remember we said being a self-eater? That's what you want to go to. You want to go to people that literally walk with God and hear from him all the time. There's a scripture out of Proverbs 13:20 that says, be friends with those who are wise and you will be wise. Be friends with fools, and of course, you know what that is. You'll end up being a fool. I would even add one to that. Don't bring any decisions up with anybody. Just try to go it alone and ask for God's blessing, and you'll still be in the category of a fool. So again, I'll tell you so many times, I literally thought that I had thought through everything, nailed in every little potential negative or positive, and then somebody that I meet with that I really trust, they just have almost like what we call a rhema word, a word for now, not just a biblical passage, but they just go, man, something just feels like you're stressed out and rushing this. Why don't you just take, if it's the Lord, he's not going to let something miss, so why don't you just give it 48 hours and just really pray and ask God to help you make this decision without all the stress and anxiety. And so when I would do that, then something wild would happen in that 48 hours. And I would be like, holy cow, I never saw that coming. So that's the benefit of being with truly wise people. So guys, seek that out. If you can't find one, give me a call. I know there's at least 2 guys in CPC that are nailed in. So number 3, consider having what we call here in Alton a wisdom council. That's actually where you have a decision, an actual defined decision that you're trying to make. and you actually call a team of people together and you go, hey, I just need an hour of like a wisdom council. This is Old Testament stuff again. This is how people used to operate. They would go to the elders of the community, and then they would go, look, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about marrying Lulabelle over here. What do you guys think? Like, what do you know of her life? And so they would speak in together, and they would kind of play off of each other. This has ended up being almost like a discipline in our community. People will call for a wisdom council all the time, and kind of a handful of people that are very trusted, a little bit older, a little bit wiser. We all just show up. We're a bunch of old guys, and we'll show up with a 22-year-old that goes, would anybody be willing to? And we love it. It's like actually one of the great things that we do together as kind of elders in our community. And so consider calling guys together and saying, guys, what do you think? I remember when I was planning to do a whiskey distillery in Denver, Colorado. I had spent 2 years, like this was a serious thing. And I called together 40 men in our church, all great business people, all that knew me, people that knew what I was doing internationally and nationally speaking, and kind of the people that understood my family dynamic with Ryan. And I gave them all the numbers, the performas, the whole deal. And they all started laughing. They just listened for like an hour. They looked like they were like fully in there. And then when I said, okay, guys, what do you think? They just started laughing. And they're like, it's great. We know you could pull it off. You probably could get the funding, but your son's having a seizure every hour, bro. And he says, as much as you love it, you're just gonna have to go buy great bottles from other people. It's probably not the time. And then I think it was 6 months later, we ended up moving to Alton. So you can see the point of that. When you bring guys together, they'll look at each other and they'll go, no, or love it. Yeah, we all feel like that fits where you're at right now. It makes sense. We all know different angles about your life, and man, we give you as much as we can. We're not saying it's the Lord, but as much as we can, we are fully behind what you're thinking right now. We think it's a great decision. So consider that. Little group wisdom sessions. Maybe that could even be a part of your men's fraternity groups, that maybe one of you a week can lob up a little decision that you're trying to make. Last thing I'll bring up is this idea of your spouse, if you have one, okay? When you got married, gentlemen, something happened that doesn't happen in any other relationship. The scriptures say that for this reason of marriage, a man will leave his father and mother and will cleave to his wife, and they will become one flesh. Holy cow, you've learned that there's something unique about this. It's like what it means is like you can't go to the bathroom or the kitchen or out on a golf retreat with your buddies without taking your wife into consideration. Like every single move we make affects them. They feel it. So like if you think about Siamese twins, they share a body, right? They've got two heads coming out of. When you get married, you're sharing a heart. That's how God works with you. So for Cheryl and I, we've gotten to the place where when we feel like something's off, one of us will generally say, hey, how is our heart? And sometimes we do it when we're just doing great. And I'll just say when we're sitting out on the porch in the morning, hey, babe, is our heart okay? And because my heart feels fine, but I don't know exactly if our heart is good. And if she goes, yeah, my heart's good, I think our heart's good. Then I go, our heart's actually good. If she goes, I don't know, I just feel off. And like we haven't been communicating or something, then I know that our heart is not good. Guys, there's even if your wife has not been good at learning how to really listen and speak to you in a way that's encouraging, that brings out the best in you, it will grow over time. And even if that's the case, she still knows you more than anybody. And so she's going to know your tendencies. She's going to know the landmines that you are most likely to step on. She knows how you actually are probably going to feel. And so, you know, I would honestly say before you go to the wisdom council, before you really try to make it on your own, you've really got to like begin to value the wisdom of your spouse. And most of you know this, the longer you go in marriage, you know, the old guys are going, yeah, just basically do what she says. There's something about that, especially if your wife really walks with the Lord. My wife, you know, I take off in the morning to work. My wife stays back on the porch and she just spends time with God. And then she sends a devotion out to our whole family, all my son-in-laws and kids. She's kind of like the spiritual matriarch. She just feeds us God's word all the time. And I'll tell you, we're so different. We could argue about absolutely everything every second of the day, but we really haven't been in a fight for 20 years. And it's because I've learned that in most cases, she somehow is over the target zone. And so I trust her, and I trust the voice of God through her. So guys, pray for that and keep working. If you're not there yet in your marriage, just know that it gets better every time. The one flesh thing actually grows. So maybe that'll help, guys. All right, a lot of ways that you can hear from God. So good that God gives us beautiful ways to get at his wisdom and his direction, to hear his heart for our lives. So I guess if you were to boil all 3 of these weeks down, I would say just don't go it alone. If you try to go it alone, boys, you are in the fool camp. God's giving you a dump truck full of incredible people, and the way that he kind of organizes the people in a church. There's just so much resource for you. It doesn't have to go as hard as it goes, guys. So take the resource and look forward to where we go from here. All right, peace out.